I want to say that we really appreciated hearing from you as things were unfolding. And I think to get a kernel of reality and truth was very helpful to us. I don't know really what we were able to do with it, but I want to give you that feedback that we were really hanging on the truth, watching Amy Goodman and hearing you and many of the other people that she was bringing into the reality media. There's a couple questions that I have.
Let's just do one because we really should move it, yeah.
Well, I want to make a comment and a question. I feel that as bad as this Bush election was, that it wasn't really Kerry that lost it. It was a stolen election, and I think...
Please, you have to do a question, because otherwise...
Okay, well, I'd like you to comment on that. I think
I did. I think Kerry lost the election. I think a better candidate could have won the election. But I think that's very interesting in light of what I was saying about Bush's willingness to risk the election. That's how committed he is. I think the other side of that is how committed he is to his goal. He was willing to risk his re-election for it, and that's very frightening to me. We'll do another. Yes, yes.
Hi, sure. One of the leashes, one of the realities...
Can you hear me? Can you hear him?
Yeah. One of the leashes, one of the realities that limits further adventures is the fact that our military is thoroughly tied down in Iraq. Have you heard anything about what euphemistically called the expansion of the military?
You mean a draft?
Yes.
Well, I wouldn't want to be a high school senior, right now. That's what I wouldn't want to be. But no, I think they'll avoid the draft because, look, I could play it really, I can make it even more frightening for you by saying the draft would lead to civil disturbances. And I'm not sure how Cheney would respond to civil disturbances. I'm really not. I'm not sure. So let's just hope he doesn't do a draft. They are talking internally about bringing more troops from Europe, although they've warned to a nub. But at this point, the draft is not, idea of drafting women to go there. They'd have to draft women too. And I think right now they're not. But, I assure you, all bets are off. It's going to get very bad, and they're going to need a lot of troops. But they need more troops if they want to. They need more troops to not win the war. You can't win the war, so it's unwinnable. But what I'm hearing is, and this is as of last week, the talk was bringing troops from Europe and making troops, all this crazy stuff, the forced draft they do with the reservists. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you said that Bush is an ideologue, that he wants to bring democracy to the Middle East. In light of what's the wholesale assault on democracy that's the Bush administration has done here with the Patriot Act and Patriot 2 that's coming up, and the torture that you revealed, what is the Bush administration definition of democracy?
Oh, well. It doesn't have much to do with what we call democracy. Clearly, it's forcing people to accept what we want them to accept. Yes, that's the whole point. Democracy with the, quote unquote, always, the point is that I'm glad you raised it, that his definition of democracy, he is also not troubled by the leadership in Pakistan or Egypt, or where there's certainly nothing approaching democracy. So, it's obviously, I didn't say it, but let me say clearly, it's wacky. Yes. I'm sorry, yes, sir.
Although I agree with you, it wouldn't make any difference. If Kerry were in, it's a mess. Are you any comment on the recount in Ohio?
No. I just don't think it's not worth, I've gotten, the reason I don't is I've gotten 8 million emails, and I think obviously there were a lot of problems. The worst thing about Ohio, and this I know firsthand for people in the New Yorker who work there, in many of the precincts in New York, or particularly in the black neighborhoods, African-American neighborhoods, there were 3, you saw those long lines, it's because there were 3 voting machines. So there's some really fundamental problems. This is democracy with a funny kind of D that we practice. That's one of the issues that we will get, what am I talking about? We didn't get to it last time. But it's one of the things that's on the table. We've got to standardize the voting system. We really do. Yeah, well, but the problem is that, it should be, in a perfect world, it'd be the most important thing we should do. But we've got so many other things to do. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to ask about, I've been studying a lot about the constitutional aspects of what the Bush administration is doing right now as far as setting up emergency powers and basically saying that the president has the power to set up courts when my understanding of the Constitution is that Congress has that power, but he's setting up military tribunals, and John Ashcroft,
Right.
thought that was. So what is the constitutional ramifications that we're going to start seeing with the president assuming these emergency powers?
Gonzalez told the president that he is above the Constitution, that the Constitution doesn't apply when it comes to Geneva Convention after 9/11, the special circumstances. And so that's Gonzalez's point of view. And that should be explored. Gonzalez, they were like lapdogs, all these guys in the Justice Department, the White House, and the Pentagon, all the lawyers, to see who could write the nastiest memo and show the president they're the toughest. Tony Lewis, my colleague at the New York Times, who now writes for the New York Review, described the briefs written by Gonzalez and Bybee and others as smacking of briefs written by mafioso lawyers for the Don, after he participated in some bloodbath, So really, it's interesting to study it, but the reality is these guys turned it on its head. The courts have been, both the Supreme Court and a federal district court last week in Washington, really stood them up. We'll just see. The campaigns, I think the next drive is going to be domestically on the court system. And what you hear from the far right is coming. It's coming here. Yes, sir.
Yeah, this has to do with your colleagues, and you may not want to answer it. You said that you felt that Bush was really sincere in what he says and what he believes.
I think he believes it, yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if you could comment on whether Thomas Friedman believes what he says.
Oh. Do you think I'm into self-immolation? Let's go on.
You said at the beginning of the lecture that you thought that the primary reason for going to war with Iraq was that that the Bush administration believed it needed to establish a democratic regime in the area. Why choose Iraq then? Why not go straight for Iran or straight into?
Well, that's a good question. Iraq, I can't give you an answer, except Iraq, his father didn't do it. I can't give you an answer. Iraq emerged as the boogeyman in the early 1990s of Wolf, Feith. You've seen all those papers. I think a lot of the arguments that went on in the early 90s from Feith and others, Wolfowitz, were pro-Israel, were representing the Israeli point of view, and somehow that morphed into the standard neocon position, which is totally pro-Israel, but I don't think for the president, as much as he may believe in the second coming and all that, I honestly believe the primary thing for this guy, whatever it is, it's become in his mind a high-value goal. And somebody asked me who would I would interview. At some point, some of these dumb questions you get. If anybody in the world from all over, who would you interview if you could? And I said Bush. I'd really want if he'd answer it, but he probably wouldn't know what I was asking. That's the problem. He's not dumb, but he does operate in a very funny way, in his processing. Iraq always became the place where they thought the beginning and end of the world was, for reasons not clear. Iran would be a much tougher target, by the way. Iran's the big winner of this, needless to say.